My name is Marissa Hale, and after 30 years of defending women in courtrooms, I never imagined the case that would break me would come from inside my own family. The night everything shattered took place not in a courtroom but inside my daughter's dining room, under a chandelier that sparkled like it knew nothing of the violence it was about to witness. It was a cold Friday evening in Seattle. The house looked perfect from the outside, warm lights glowing behind frosted windows. But the moment I stepped through the door, I sensed it, a tension so sharp it felt like breathing in broken glass. Evan Ridley, my son-in-law, sat at the table with the stiff posture of a man who believes he owns every inch of space he occupies. And his mother, Claudette Ridley, sat at the head of the table like royalty presiding over a court she controlled. My daughter, Lena, moved around the table quietly. Too quietly for the girl who once filled every room with laughter. When a single drop of water spilled from the pitcher as Lena refilled Evan's glass, the entire evening cracked open. Evan set down his fork with a soft metallic tap. "Look what you did," he said, calm, almost bored. Lena opened her mouth to apologize, but she didn't get the chance. Evan slapped her once, then again. And again. 3 clean, calculated strikes, the kind delivered by a man who didn't fear consequences because he'd never faced any. Lena collapsed onto the floor, her cheek already reddening, and Claudette clapped, like it was a performance, like pain was something to applaud. "She'll behave better now," she said with an approving smile. "A wife must be corrected sometimes." For a moment, the world around me froze. The mother in me wanted to grab Lena and run. The attorney in me began memorizing every detail. The angle of Evan's raised hand, the pattern of light on Lena's bruising cheek, Claudette's expression of satisfaction. But instead of screaming, I stood up slowly and pulled out my phone. "Commander Hale," I said when the officer I'd worked with for decades answered. "This is Marissa Hale. I need immediate response. Domestic assault in progress. Recording begins now." The shock on Evan's face was the first crack in his false confidence. Soon after, uniformed officers filled the house. Evan was handcuffed. Claudette protested, claiming it was a family matter. But the law didn't care for her theatrics. Lena stood shaking, her cheek swollen. I wrapped my coat around her shoulders and led her out of the house she once believed would be a home. Back at my place, her childhood bedroom still preserved exactly as she left it. She sat on the bed and exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. "Mom," she whispered, "I didn't want you to see that." I handed her a cup of chamomile tea, something I used to do when thunderstorms frightened her as a child. "Tell me when it really started," I said softly. She stared at the rising steam before her voice broke. "Do you remember when Evan and I traveled to Spain after the wedding?" Of course I remembered. The pictures, the smiles, the messages full of excitement. "That last night," she said, "a waiter asked how our meal was. I told him it was great. When he walked away, Evan accused me of flirting. When we got back to the hotel, he called me an embarrassment. I cried for hours. But the next morning he apologized so sweetly that I thought it was just stress." Her hands shook as she continued. "That was the first shift. After that he controlled more and more. Who I talked to, what I wore, how long I stayed at work. And then, his mother started showing up. Claudette, the undertow behind the storm. She moved into a condo for blocks away. She had a key to their house, a key Evan gave her without asking Lena. Sometimes Lena came home to find Claudette reorganizing her kitchen. Other times she found her clothes replaced with more respectable ones, usually shapeless and dull. "I told her it made me uncomfortable once," Lena whispered. And she laughed, like I was a foolish child. Claudette's laugh, condescending, hollow, was exactly how I remembered it. The first time he pushed me, Lena said, she helped me stand up and told me which concealer to use to hide the bruise. Yellow first, skin tone next, powder to finish. As if covering violence were a skill she expected Lena to master. Listening to her, my chest ached with a mixture of rage and guilt. I had defended hundreds of women, but my own daughter had been suffering in silence right under my nose. I thought I could fix it, Lena said quietly. I kept trying to keep the peace. Peace, I told her, is never something you should have to earn. She leaned against me, her tears soaking into my shoulder. That night, she let years of fear and shame spill out. Every moment she had hidden from me, every insult disguised as concern, every bruise tucked beneath long sleeves. I held her the way I hadn't since she was a little girl and realized something terrifying. She was shrinking herself to survive, and I would not let her shrink another inch. Not under my watch. Not ever again. The first morning after Lena returned home was strangely quiet. She moved through the house like someone rediscovering gravity's slow steps, soft breaths, eyes unfocused. Trauma makes the world feel heavier. I've seen it thousands of times in court, but watching it weigh down my own daughter, that was a different kind of ache. I let her sleep, and while she rested, I organized everything for the formal charges. Incident reports, photographs from the police, the audio recording I captured at the dinner table. Every detail mattered. Every word Claudette spoke would become evidence. But peace never settles for long when an abuser realizes he's losing control. The first call came from an unknown number around 10 a.m., then another, then 6 more. We didn't answer, but the voicemail notifications kept coming, a chain of carefully crafted manipulation. The first message played in a soft, broken voice. Lena, I'm lost without you. I'm so sorry. I've been under pressure. I wasn't myself. Please don't let our marriage end over one mistake. One mistake. 3 slaps. Months of fear. Years of subtle control. Reduced to one mistake. I watched Lena's face tighten as she deleted the message. But it was the second one that made her hands shake. I saw a therapist today. They think I have impulse control issues. I'm getting help, Lena. I'm trying. Please talk to me. Just you and me. Not with your mother listening. There it was, the hook. The isolation tactic. Remove the witness. Remove the support system. Remove the truth. I snatched the phone gently from her hand before she could delete the next message. The third voicemail was colder. Calculated. My attorney already filed a civil claim against your mother. I didn't want that. But she forced my hand. If you just speak with me, privately, this can all go away. My jaw clenched. He was using fear now. Her fear of conflict. Her fear of courtrooms. Her fear of disappointing people. Lena stared at the screen, guilt flooding her expression. What if he really is trying this time? She whispered. What if he changes? I sat beside her and held her hands. Sweetheart, real change never begins with threats. Her eyes filled with tears. I hate that part of me still cares about him. You're human, I told her softly. Caring isn't the problem. Going back would be. That day, she blocked every number Evan used. For the first time in a long time, her shoulders relaxed. Just a little. Peace lasted exactly for days. On the 5th morning, while I was reviewing documents for the case, my phone rang again. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. This is Marissa Hale, I answered. A woman's voice, polished and icy, floated through the line. Mrs. Hale, this is Eleanor Briggs. I'm a close friend of Claudette Ridley. Of course she was. That circle always protected its own. I'm calling, she continued, Because it seems your daughter has exaggerated a private marital disagreement. My breath slowed. A misunderstanding, she said sweetly. Nothing worth destroying a man's reputation over. A misunderstanding. Women lose entire selves to misunderstandings. Mrs. Briggs, I replied calmly. I witnessed a criminal assault. Nothing was misunderstood. She exhaled dramatically, as if I were a stubborn child. Marissa, you're a lawyer. Surely you know these things are better handled quietly. Evan's family is well connected. Making this incident disappear would be in everyone's best interest, especially yours. There it was, the threat wrapped in silk. Without a word, I pressed record on my desk phone, double quotes Mrs. Briggs, I said, you are attempting to interfere with an ongoing criminal investigation. This conversation is being documented. The line went silent. Then she hung up. I knew more would follow, and I was right. Within hours, my assistant forwarded a scanned copy of a lawsuit delivered to my office. Evan's attorney filed a defamation claim for $2 million. Attached to it was something worse, a temporary suspension of the restraining order against him, signed by a magistrate with the same last name as Evan's uncle. The system he depended on was already working to shield him. When Lena found me staring at the documents, she paled. Mom, are we in trouble? No, I said immediately. This is intimidation. That's all. But I could see panic blooming in her eyes. The old reflex, the trained survival instinct. Then she whispered the question every survivor asks at some point. What if he wins? I stepped close and cupped her face gently. If Evan wins, every abused woman who ever fought back loses, I said. And I will not let that happen. Not to you, not to anyone. The next hours were a blur of urgency. I filed an emergency appeal. I gathered every piece of evidence. I prepared legal arguments so tight they couldn't be pried apart. If Evan wanted a war, he had chosen the wrong mother and the wrong attorney to provoke. That evening, after long hours of paperwork and calls, I found Lena standing in the backyard beneath the fading light. She wasn't crying. She wasn't trembling. She was staring at the herb garden her father once tended every Sunday morning. The mint is taking over, she murmured. Dad hated when things got messy. He'd want you safe, I said softly. Not perfect, just safe. She wrapped her arms around herself, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel stupid, Mom, for staying, for believing him, for letting him break me. I touched her shoulder gently. You weren't stupid. You were in love, and he manipulated you with surgical precision. That's not weakness. That's trauma. Her eyes glistened. The hardest part, she said, is accepting that the man I thought I married never existed. I nodded. Losing the illusion is its own kind of grief. Something shifted in her face then, a small spark, a quiet awakening. I think I'm ready, she said. For what? I asked. To stop feeling guilty for leaving, to take my life back, to fight. For the first time in years, she stood taller. That night, she blocked every last contact tied to the Ridley family. She silenced notifications, deleted messages, and when she set her phone down, she exhaled deeply, as if letting go of a weight she'd carried for far too long. Mom, she whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think I'll ever be myself again? I held her hand. You won't be the same, I said. But you'll be stronger, and you'll be free. For the first time, she believed me. A week after the lawsuit arrived, life became a strange mixture of waiting and preparing. I filed the emergency appeal, but appeals take time. Lena tried to distract herself making tea, reading old novels she once loved, taking slow walks around the block, but she moved like someone carrying invisible weight. Every unexpected sound made her flinch. Every phone vibration made her shoulders tighten. Survivors often live with echoes long after the danger is gone. I knew that. I had counseled hundreds of women through it. But knowing it professionally and watching my daughter break at small noises were two very different things. On a quiet Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone buzzed with an email notification from the Superior Court. I opened it expecting a scheduling update. Instead, I froze. The emergency judge had reviewed my appeal and overturned the suspension of the restraining order. Not only reinstated it, but expanded it. Evan was now prohibited from contacting Lena directly or indirectly, and Claudette was added to the order for facilitating psychological abuse. When I read the decision aloud, Lena covered her mouth with both hands. Her shoulders trembled, not with fear this time, but with relief so powerful it made her knees weak. She collapsed into my arms, crying softly into my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "I can breathe." But the fight wasn't over. Not even close. That afternoon, Evan's attorney emailed again, demanding negotiation. He threatened that the $2 million lawsuit would proceed aggressively unless we met privately. A classic tactic: pressure, isolate, intimidate. I looked at Lena. For the first time, she didn't shrink. She stood straighter, her jaw set, her voice firm. "We're not negotiating," she said. "Not 1 inch." That was the moment I knew she had finally stepped out of Evan's shadow. And so, we prepared for the hearing. I gathered every document, every message, every medical record, every photograph. I even recovered the audio recording from the dinner table. Claudette's applause, Evan's slaps, Lena's broken gasp. But it was the final part of the recording, Claudette's cold, proud voice, that would change everything. "This is how she learns to behave." Those 7 words were the nail in the coffin. The morning of the hearing was bitterly cold. The courthouse steps glistened with frost as people filed inside. I could feel Lena shaking beside me, not in fear, but in anticipation, the kind that mixes hope with dread. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Domestic violence cases rarely drew this much attention. But the Ridley family name carried power, money, influence, and corruption. Evan entered wearing an expensive suit, his expression smug, as if the outcome was predetermined. Claudette followed behind him, rigid and defiant, her chin tilted high. Lena squeezed my hand. "We're okay," I whispered. "You're safe." When the judge called our case, the room fell silent. Evan's attorney spoke first, painting him as a loving husband overwhelmed by emotion. He dismissed the incident as a regrettable overreaction blown out of proportion by meddling. Then it was my turn. I presented the timeline, the threats, the messages, the evidence, and then I played the recording. The sound echoed through the courtroom. Slap, 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 followed by Claudette's clapping, my daughter's soft gasp, and then Claudette's voice, cold and triumphant. "A wife must learn to behave." The judge's expression changed instantly, the tightening jaw, the hardening eyes. When the audio ended, he leaned forward. "Mr. Ridley," he said, "your actions constitute clear domestic assault. Mrs. Ridley, your words and behavior demonstrate active encouragement of violence." Evan swallowed, his confidence draining. Claudette's face fell into a pale mask. The judge continued. "The restraining order will remain in full effect. The civil lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, and this court is initiating a criminal investigation into both of you." A collective murmur rippled through the room. Lena sat frozen. Then slowly, she smiled. Just a small smile, soft and steady, but it was the first genuine one I had seen in years. When we stepped out of the courthouse into the cold air, she gripped my hand and whispered, "Mom, I'm free." And this time, it was true. Life did not magically repair itself afterward. Healing never snaps back into place. It rebuilds itself in fragments. The weeks following the hearing were a mixture of strength and vulnerability. Some mornings, Lena woke with energy, ready to reclaim her routines. She watered the herb garden. She jogged around the neighborhood. She cooked breakfast without trembling hands. Other mornings, she stared at the ceiling, fighting memories she didn't invite. Healing isn't the absence of pain. It's the decision to choose yourself even when pain still lingers. One evening, she joined me on the back porch. The sunset washed the yard in warm orange light. She cupped her tea between her hands and said quietly, "Mom, do you think I'll ever trust anyone again?" "Yes," I said, "but this time you'll trust differently, with boundaries, with clarity, with strength." She nodded slowly. A few days later, she began therapy in earnest. She reconnected with friends she had drifted away from. She went back to work, and her co-workers welcomed her with an outpouring of protection and support. Piece by piece, she rebuilt herself, not as the woman she was before Evan, but as someone wiser, stronger, steadier. And somewhere along the way, I rebuilt myself too, as a mother, as a woman, as someone who learned that even the strongest of us can miss the quietest cries. Before this story ends, I want to speak to every woman listening who might recognize herself in Lena's experience. Abuse does not begin with bruises. It begins with isolation, with doubt, with control disguised as concern, with a love that shrinks you instead of nurturing you. If you are living in silence, you deserve safety. You deserve joy. You deserve to be free. And you are not alone. If Lena can find her way back to herself, so can you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Day She Remember and share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might help someone find courage.